Hello everybody, today I'm going to be talking about doing some scratch repairs and how you can repair scuffs and scratches on shoes. Okay, so let's go. Hello everybody, it's Robert Powers. 4.5 out of 5. My shoe collection. Some stains there. Let's get a nice lather. Here is the finished product. I'm not a professional. How tight this is though. You can see it very clearly here. I just cut the thread. So here it goes. Now that's a proper mirror shine. They're both done. Doesn't it look awesome? Okay, so if you guys have been following my channel, you know that this thing has grown from just, me grabbing a camera and, shooting some things to, it's grown to a little bit of a following. And first of all, I just recently crossed 5,000 followers, subscribers, I should say, 5,000 subscribers. I was super pumped about that. So I'd like to thank you guys out there, you gentlemen out there, and probably some ladies for making that happen. And there's one thing I did want to say though. If you notice in my little ditty in the intro, it says I'm not a professional, and I leave that in there because I'm not. Now, I do have an engineering background, and I've worked on a lot of shoes, hundreds and hundreds of them, just because, I come across a lot, I thrift a lot, I'm kind of like the go-to shoe guy for my entire office. But here's one thing that just kind of scares me that's starting to happen now that this thing is growing a little bit. Like for example, what I'm working on today, these are a pair of Mezlan. So they're not, obviously they're, not really expensive, a $300 issue, but these are a friend's pair of shoes from the office. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm doing a guy from the office a favor. He'll probably buy me Chipotle, if I do a good job. But I don't have a lot of skin in the game on these, okay? And from this type of repair, I know it's going to come out fine. There's been some comments recently, like there was one that said, somebody said, based on watching one of my videos, he's going to sand down and repair a crack. I think it was cracking on a pair of $700 shoes. I'm like, oh my God, I hope it works out good, because these polos, if you remember the crack repair video on these polos, and right there, they're holding up extremely well, very, very well. Even though you can see the repair, that was super glue. These were actually cracked all the way through the outer leather. I've worn these, I think, 7, 8, 9 times for a full 12-hour day. They're holding up really well. These are polos that I, thrifted for 15 bucks. So it's not like I have a lot of skin in the game. So that just makes it a little nervous. So I guess on that part, I'm just saying, use caution, test things out. Don't, dive into them, head first. So, but this video today, here's what I want to talk about. There's two major types of leather. So I'm going to divide up what I talk about on whether it's full grain leather or corrected grain leather. And the other part of what I'm going to talk about is 3 main ways that after you get the surface, finish, in other words, the roughness here, you may have to sand the leather, but after you get that surface smooth, how you put the color back on, and the 3 different ways you can do that, okay? So let's go. Now, if you already haven't watched my other videos or don't already, understand the difference between full grain leather and corrected grain leather, that's going to be the first thing that you really need to know the difference between those two things if you're going to do a good job on like scratch repair. Now, what I'm talking about is major scratches, not just, one little tiny, line or something like that. So I'll link some videos below to explain the difference. But in short, when you get full grain leather, okay, let me try and adjust the light here so you can get a little better view on it. What you're getting with full grain leather is you are getting top grain, I should say. Really what we're talking about is top grain leather. Can you see that there is variance in color? I'm going to try to get it real close and get this camera to focus well. What I'm trying to show you, okay, if I can get it to focus, right, and it's hard to see. What I'm trying to show you is that there is, I don't want to call it flaws, but what you're seeing is the actual outer surface of the animal's skin. You can tell because in real life you can see pores. You can see tiny variations in the surface texture. You can see where the hair follicles actually came out of the leather, okay? So that means that the leather, although dyed, okay, it does not have, something on top of it, okay? The dyes and the finishes basically go into the leather. Now this is corrected grain leather, and the reason I dislike it is because every pair of corrected grain leather shoes that I've ever gotten does this, right? You can see the, pretty severe cracking. I don't wear these shoes anymore except maybe to like plow the driveway or get to work when it's really nasty out in the snow. So you can see there. So what corrected grain leather is, if you see the surface though, is really like very uniform. There's no hair follicles, there's no, surface on the leather. It's just really dead smooth. So what they do is they grind off the surface of the leather, then they coat it with something. So the reason I'm telling you this is if you're doing major scratch repair, okay, that is going to be, in my opinion, what I found is the corrected grain leather shoes are going to be a little more difficult to be able to repair than full grain leather, okay? In some ways, unless it's black, okay, unless it's black, and I'll come to that. Now, black to me, a black pair of shoes is the easiest color shoe to repair a scuff or scratch on, okay? Now, so in my opinion, there's three basic ways that you're going to put color back on a shoe. So one way is with polishes, you know, whether it's a cream-based polish like this, you know, or whether it's a, you know, a hard paste wax in a tin polish, you know, such as, you know, like something like this, okay? That's the one way you're going to put color back on is by a colored polish. The second way you would do it is through dye. Now this is an alcohol-based dye. Fiebing's leather dye is awesome. I've used it in a few other videos before. There's also oil-based dyes, to be very honest with you. I've never used the oil-based dyes. The alcohol-based dyes do have a warning on there that say it can dry out the shoe. So what I've always done is after, you know, dyeing the shoe, re-dyeing them, make sure that I, you know, moisturize them prolifically, okay? Now the third way that you can actually put color back on a shoe is with paint. And the third way that you could actually do that, and I'm probably should have here pulled it out earlier, but you know, some kind of paint like this, okay? Now, I have not had really good success with the paint unless it's black. So let me explain why. And if you remember, I'll put a link below. I did a major scratch repair on a pair of black monk strap shoes, Florsheim monk strap shoes that got a deep scratch across the toe when the owner opened the door to a hotel room and it had a sharp metal edge that cut across the toe. The reason I say except for black, I mean, if you've ever worn clothes, you know, like put on a sport coat and a pair of black slacks and the blacks didn't match, you know, on clothes you'll have that, but on shoes, I don't want to sound too ignorant, but basically black is black. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is my personal experience has been that when you're getting black on a shoe, this is just kiwi edge dressing, okay? This is leather dye. This is what Kiwi sells at, you know, like any CVS or Walmart for a few bucks. It's got a sponge applicator on the top, and this is for re-dyeing, you know, the edges of the soles black. And I've used this, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that black is black, you know? So with the black, I've very successfully, you know, had good luck, whether it's, you know, the paint, like I use on those Florsheims to fill in the crack, or the black dye. I've had very good luck with, you know, getting the black to match. I mean, like I said, from my personal experience, black is black. So the black, to me, is the easiest color shoe to get to match, okay? But like a color like this, like a burgundy oxblood color, to mix up a paint to match, I found it to be almost impossible, you know? So that does not work very well. Here's a technique, okay? The technique I found that works best, and I'll show you how to get this scratched area level, because right now it's gouged, okay? But the technique that I found to work the best, now the shoes I'm going to show you, I did a video on, they got a lot of views, like over 130,000 views. A pair of Johnson and Murphy shoes that the owner like almost completely destroyed by walking in salt. And these things really badly need polish. But on the toe, so what happened was I had to actually sand down some of the leather because the leather bubbled from salt damage. And one of the best ways to cover that recoloring is with basically making it darker, you know, in other words, putting a burnishing on the toe. And maybe I went a little bit too dark on these. You know, moderate burnishing looks better than, you know, too dark. In other words, one of my viewers once said it shouldn't look like the person stuck the shoe, you know, into mud. You know, so in other words, a subtle burnishing I think looks better than, you know, a very dark contrast difference. This is almost too much of a contrast difference. But this is one technique that works very well, is because usually when they get scuffed on the toe the worst, and then if you burnish it darker and fade it back, you know, then you don't have to match the color. Does that make sense? So that's one of the most successful strategies that I've had. So you can dye these areas, but the technique that I'm going to show you how to do is by using the polishes. Now, for example, here you see this is sapphire cream polish, and this is the light brown. You know, here I've also got the sapphire, you know, I've got a medium brown, you know, I've got some kiwi tan. So what I'm saying is I've got a lot of different polishes in this same range. You know, I've also got the black, so if I need to darken up the light brown, I can add just a, you know, a pin drop of black and darken it up and get this to match. Here is the biggest downside to using the polish to cover those scratches and things like that up. The polish will wear off, okay? When the polish wears off, then that area, the scuffed area, may be more apparent, okay, number one. Number two, when you sand into leather, you are breaking the surface. Now, I'm not a leather expert, okay? So what I'm going to tell you is not factual, but it's the way the leather behaves. Does that make sense? What I'm going to say here next is an illustration of how the leather behaves. So, you know, leather is the skin of an animal, and it's as if when you break that surface, you know, by sanding, which it's already broken, so I'm going to sand this area bigger to get it flat, but that area becomes more porous. It's going to take more polish to get it up to shine. It's going to take more maintenance to keep it shined, and it's also going to be more susceptible to stains, whether they're water or other solvents or salt water or other things soaking in. It's going to soak into that area quicker, okay? So, you know, just you have to be aware of that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is it's still going to be better than this, right? Does that make sense? So first thing I'm going to do is get out some sandpaper. Okay, so sandpaper, the grits that I use, I've got a ton of them from working on the car in the garage. 150 grit right here. 150 grit is, it's got some decent coarseness. It'll cut through, you know, pretty quick. It'll leave the surface a little bit too rough though. Then I've got 400 grit here. Then I've actually got some 600. The 600 grit, I don't think you need any finer than 600 grit. And I don't even often need that. So for this area here, I'm going to just go ahead and start with my 150. Now my 150 is pretty old and worn, so it might actually act more like a 180. If you're not sure, start with too fine, right? The downside to using too fine of a grit is it's going to take a long time to sand it down. Now I hope this shows up on camera. So this area here is really gouged. So all I want to do is get this surface flat. Now do you see that reflection that you see there? What I learned in bodywork is even a 5 or 10 thousandths of an inch divot or low spot is going to you know, hurt the reflection, and you're going to see that. So you need to, before you polish that, you know, you need to really get that surface even. Now the good thing is it's on a crown area, a toe area, so it's going to be really easy to get a round shape back on there versus if it was you know, somewhere else where it was just, you know, just flat. Okay. So I'm going to try and find a, you know, just try and find a semi-fresh spot here, and I'm just going to work really slow. Moderate pressure. Little circles. And I'm expanding out, and you can feel the sandpaper drag. You can really feel it drag over the middle of the scratch where the leather is, you know, very damaged. This person accidentally drug his foot coming up a concrete step. Just using the tip of my finger. And you can feel it with your finger as well. See, there's the back side here. There's still a, you know, the harsh transition. I got to get rid of that. There's roughness to the front side here. Now there's a technique to sanding, like right here on let me get something to, you know, maybe point with. So like right here, you know, this edge, if I sand this way, parallel to that edge, then, you know, I'm going to tend to knock that edge off, if that makes sense, okay? If you sand like this piece here, you know, I can also sand across it to try and knock that ridge off. So just be cognizant, don't just sand, you know, think about the shape of the leather. I can turn the sandpaper so that I'm using more of this flat edge to get a small area, or just that corner if I want to focus the sanding just on one little point, or I can push down on it flat like this and use a flat part. Sorry, my camera's vibrating. It's getting there, you see. The edges are fading, so they're pretty smooth. It's getting there. Really at this phase, what I'm doing is I'm contouring it. I'm feeling, I'm looking, there's a little bit of an edge there, that's gonna show too much. So unfortunately, even though that's good leather, I'm gonna have to remove some of that by using a flat area here. It's a feel thing. Now I'm gonna switch to the 400 grit, okay? And this is gonna start to, do you see those, I don't know, pieces sticking up? It's going to start to knock some of those off because we need a smooth surface. I'm going to press probably a little harder with the 400. We use a little more finger pressure because there's not as much sandpaper grit to remove leather. Like I said, I'm using fairly heavy pressure here. And it's starting to have like a polishing effect. I'm going to turn it to get some fresh sandpaper. Tell you the truth, I probably should have degreased this. Some acetone. Stuff's pretty harsh, pretty bad for you. Clean rag. You see the mistake I made? You see that black? That's polish. So I want to get the polish off of there, away from this area. I'm going to do this spot up here as well. Okay, so that to me is pretty good. I'm not looking at the color. Please ignore the color, the surface texture. It's smooth. I don't see any sanding lines. This will all be covered with polish, so let's get to that next. I'm going to go ahead and use the lighter color first because you can always darken it. It's a lot easier to darken than it is to lighten. So I'm going to start with this light brown. Well, my opinion, again, just my opinion, I like using the sapphire cream polish to start with. It seems to soak into the leather really well. It actually does not cover scratches really well, but right now I'm kind of more focused on coloring it. Almost look at it like a car. If you've ever painted a car part or, you know, whatever, a patio bench or something, it's almost like the primer coat. It seems to soak into the leather well and prep the surface, and it acts kind of like a primer. That's just my opinion, okay? I've not learned that from anybody. That's just my experience. So I'm going to take a good dab here, and you're going to see this stuff, it almost acts like, the sapphire cream polish almost acts like it has oil. I don't know what it has in it, but you can see it darken the leather. You can see it soaks into it, and that's what I like. I want this to, you know, not be on top of the leather, but go into the leather. You see that? And I'm going to blend it back. Okay. Isn't that amazing? You see that already? And put on another coat. See, I'm not using a ton. Okay, just a little bit. It goes quite a ways. And I'm pressing it in really hard. I'm actually pressing in hard. Okay, it's had a couple minutes to set up. So I think now I'm going to put on a coat of medium brown. See, the color's a bit darker. And this is a, you know, kind of a slow process of building it up. To be honest with you, around this area here, I probably could have sanded it a little better. And there's nothing stopping me from going back and redoing it, okay? So it's nothing we're doing, well, I shouldn't say nothing, other than sanding through the leather, but the, you know, none of this stuff is really permanent. It's not much that we're doing here that we can't redo. Now, this is Sapphire Mirror Gloss, this is black. Okay. Mirror Gloss is a harder paste wax that's designed to put a spit shine on toe caps. Water, light pressure. I'm going to go with a neutral Sapphire Mirror Gloss. Having some adhesion problems, I think, with the wax. Might be trying to build it up too fast. So at this point I'm having some adhesion problems, so I know what I need to do, and I don't like to do it, is I need to let that wax just dry up, soak in the leather, dry up, and just let it sit. So I'm just going to let that sit. I'm going to do something else, and I'm going to come back. And by the way, on this shoe, there are actually some little nicks. There's a gouge there. That's already been polished over. I'm not going to fill those, because like right now, I'm literally this far from the camera to get you guys to see that. And I know on video, it's like, oh my God, it looks horrible. Listen, nobody's face is ever going to be that close to your shoe, okay? So in other words, I mean, this right here is about 18 inches away from the camera, okay? So it's just not, worth it. You know, the shoes are not perfect. They're gonna get these kind of things in them. So these, I'm just gonna straight polish over, okay? They're just, you know, it's just not worth pursuing that, if that makes sense, okay? I get a little bit of the black maybe in that to darken up those light spots, just a touch. To color in that light colored leather. See, that'll be just fine. And try and build up some more layers. In essence, what I'm trying to do here is use the clear to create a smooth surface, like you're clear coating the car. This is the other shoe, by the way. I didn't tell you that. This is the other shoe, the non-scuffed one. Back to the scuffed one. Look at that, it's starting to come around. Got too much polish there. And you can use your finger. You can use your bare finger. Sometimes you can load more polish up with your bare finger, and also sometimes your bare finger will help push the polish into the deeper crevices more, okay? And with that set up again. So I'm putting on another layer here. Just buffed off the, I didn't do it on camera, but I buffed off the polish. Another layer. I probably won't do all this on camera. I'll probably just cut to the finished result. You guys see what I'm doing? I'm just putting on clear polish. All right, water, you know, just a spit shine. And you see, you can kind of see a little bit of the color difference. I might put on a little more black. The color match is not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. I did liberally coat them while I was waiting for the other stuff to dry with the sapphire. This is the mink oil. This is the Renovateur mink oil treatment, because the shoes are, and they're old and they've got some cracking, you know, so I don't want them to crack any worse. And I'm just going to keep doing that, adding a little more black if I need to, a little clear, building up the spit shine, covering up that toe. Okay, and I'll show you the finished result. It's getting there. Okay, so here's the finished result. Now, can you honestly tell which one was scuffed? It was this one. Okay. It's not bad, huh? Trying to get it from different angles here for you. I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, you got to admit, you know, I mean, if you get it in just the right light, you know, you can see the color difference, right? But you got to admit, that's not bad, right? You know? And I'm a little bit limited sometimes in the amount of time I can take on this stuff. Like right now, we're going to dinner at my mother's house, and my kids upstairs are, you know, dancing and screaming, and, you know, so, I mean, it's not like I have all day to work on this stuff, you know, so I'm pretty happy with it. And I think the owner will be ecstatic too here, you know, relative to, you know, what they looked like when we started. This area here is really gouged. So I hope that helps. Hope you got some value out of that. God bless you guys. Feel free to check out my other videos and subscribe if you'd like. All right, have an awesome day.